Hmm.
Good morning,
So
sir.
who is starting?
Please start.
Sir,
Sayyid.
may I start?
Okay,
Yes.
please start.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Johal S. Khan. Today I am going to give my introduction. I was born in 11 January 1998 in Azamgarh and also completed my schooling there. I have done my inter from St. Xavier High School, Azamgarh, and I have done my BTech in Mechanical Engineering degree from ZSCT, AMU. Uh, I have done my diploma in product design internship from CAD Academy, and I have also done an online course on web designing. And for future, I want to work as a project manager. My strength is that when I decide to do any work, I am very focused and dedicated about it. But my weakness is that I lack timetable and I lack confidence due to less exposure. Thank you.
What exactly is your career aspiration?
Sir, project manager.
What type of project manager?
Sir, site project manager.
But generally for that, we have people from civil engineering,
Sir, I'm from mechanical engineering, sir.
and that is what I am inquiring.
Sir, mechanical engineering also done that type of job. Uh,
Mhm. Okay. Yes, Ashad.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum salam, Ashad. Please start.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sayyid Ashad, and I'm from Aligarh. I've done my high schooling from St. Fredless Senior Secondary School, Aligarh. My intermediate from Sayyid Hamid Senior Secondary School, and my undergraduation from the course BSc Computer Science from Aligarh Muslim University, and currently pursuing my MBA degree from Aligarh. I would like to say about myself, particularly, I'm a very hardworking person and kind of fluent when I make friendship with other peoples. The best part about me is I make friendship very easily, and I try to mend myself uh, as soon as I walk with people, those who are new to me as well as those who are old. I have been a sports person since birth. I like to play football very much, and I try to relate a lot of my things which I do in my life quite very much to football. Football has taught me a lot about leadership, sportsmanship, and discipline. That is the best part. And I try to put all those things in my life, and I'll hope I'll also put all those things in my managerial career once I'll be one in the future, inshallah. Thanks a lot.
So what kind of managerial career you are aspiring for?
So, particularly in the area of international business, I have a lot of my relatives in companies like ACPL and Maersk. So, I have been looking up to them since birth. So, I was kind of thinking I can also go that way.
Okay. Thank you, Ashad.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So we'll have just two introductions.
Ji, sir. Today there are no introduction. introductions.
Okay, now so let us begin with recaps. Farwa and Aziz.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I'm
Sir, can I give my introduction?
presenting my screen.
No, not
Ashab,
like
you
that.
were supposed to give yesterday, so we are not allowing students. Why didn't you give yesterday?
Ma'am, actually, I joined the meeting late and the
Why
introduction
did you
part was
join late?
done.
Why did you join late? That's the concern.
I'm sorry
Let's
for
begin
that.
with it. Let's begin with the recap.
Farwa and
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
Ma'am, I'm
Farwa.
just presenting my screen.
Okay, Farwa and Aziz.
Farwa, please switch on your video also. You have to unmute.
Sorry, okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Farwa Tidar, and today I'll be presenting the recap for yesterday's class. So, yesterday, sir, were discussing about the basic roles of functions of management. These are planning, organizing, leadership, and controlling. So, what sir did that yesterday he asked each one of us to put our point of view that what is the importance of each of these functions. So, first of all, I'll talk about the features of each function. For planning, I think planning improves decision making and time management, whereas organizing helps in optimum utilization of financial and human resources. It not only aids in a proper assignment of jobs to suitable employees, but also it keeps a track that there is no waste of resources and efforts. So now leadership, well, leadership provides direction in and helps everybody to identify the roles that fit skills and experience. Now the last one is controlling. So what controlling does is that it helps the managers to monitor the effectiveness of their planning, organizing, and leading activities. Controlling determines that what is particularly being accomplished. So, Sir gave us an example of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, where he talked about his effort of creating this institution, Aligarh Muslim University. So, basically, effort requires planning, and it just doesn't come into effect in just one day. It also requires leadership because there's a need of, uplifting vision. It requires huge resources. For example, Sir gave an example of the building called Stretchy Hall, where he told us that to build a structure like this, we need resources, and resources have to be arranged from somewhere. Uh, so from this, we came to know that controlling is also a very important part if we think from a constitutional perspective. So Sir Syed was set out to do a job, when everybody else was against it, especially his own community, which was a great setback for him. So when he set out the mission of Talim and Tarbiyat, people were not at all ready. So he prepared the ground and started his own magazine called Tehzeebul Ikhlaq, as mentioned by Sir. So in order to create awareness about his ideas, he started this magazine. So there was a fellow called Mehdi Mia who would republish it, and sometimes Mehdi's ideas used to be, more and more powerful and strong than Sir Syed Ahmed's ideas. So Sir Syed, he just realized the worth of this person and wrote him a letter that, I would like to have a meeting with you, and I would like to know that what are the points that I'm lacking. Um, so later on they decided to work together, and this particular fellow later became Mohsinul Mulk, and one of the key roles in betterment of this institution was played by him. So that was the act of leadership. So, with this example, Sir concluded that creating an institution like this is an act of leadership, and plans are nothing, planning is everything. So, a planning can change, but each function from all these roles of management, like planning, controlling, leading, and organizing, they have their own importance in themselves. So, that this was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैम अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर
Walaikum Assalam.
so my name is Azizul Khan and I'm going to present a recap of the last class. So yesterday we discussed which managerial function is the most important, and almost everyone agrees that planning is the most important. Almost everyone says that if you don't have plans, then how will you proceed? Then what is the need of the other managerial functions? Other managerial functions arises when you have good planning to achieve your goal. And I would agree with that. But what surprises me is that almost everyone in the discussion neglected controlling, which, in my opinion, is as important as planning. I would like to support this argument with an example. When Steve Jobs was forced to leave his own company, then what happened with Apple? The stock of Apple Incorporation crashed like anything, and Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy. Don't they have plans? I would ask those people who support planning is the most important things and neglecting controlling. Don't they have plans when Steve Jobs left the Apple? Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy, and in 1997, they brought back Steve Jobs in the Apple, and he revived Apple with collaboration with Microsoft. So yeah, I would say that controlling is as important as planning. And I remember someone in the meeting, in the discussion, said that controlling is not that much important. It reminded me one scene from the movie Jobs. I would like to read that statement. Like Steve Wozniak, who was the co-founder of Apple and was one of the friend of Steve Jobs, he says that you can't write code, you are not an engineer, you are not a designer, you can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board, the graphical interface was stolen from Xerox PARC. Jeff Raskin was the leader of the Mac team before you threw him off his own project. Someone else designed the box. So how come 10 times in a day I read Steve Jobs is a genius? What do you do? Then Steve Jobs replied, musicians play their instruments. I play the orchestra. And you are a good musician. You sit right there and you are the best in your role. So I remember one thing more in the class that you said a quote that planning is the locomotive of engine that drives the entire train. But I'm not totally agree with that quote. Rather, I would say that planning is the engine and controlling is the locomotive of that engine that drives the entire train. And then we discussed about Sir Sayyid Rahmatullah Alayh, that how he built the university, how with limited resources he was able to build such a building that are still a treat to our eyes. And we discussed that someone took Sir Sayyid's signature and siphoned out lakhs of rupees from the college fund. And you said that plans required uplifting vision and share that uplifting vision with the core group of people who will abide with that idea. And we discussed one question that how do we influence people and win them to your own side? Because when Sir Syed was set out to do his job, then majority of the people's own community opposes him. And we come to know that this can be done by the act of leadership. And at that time, Sir Sayyid published a journal uh, named Tehzeebul Akhlaq to make ground for the ignorant people of his own community. And Mehdi Mia used to publish a rebuttal in the Tehzeebul Akhlaq. And sometime the ideas of Mehdi Hassan was more powerful and strong than Sir Sayyid. Then Sir Sayyid called Mehdi Mia to his home for dinner. That day they have dinner together, but they could not able to agree on one thing. And Sir Sayyid said that we will talk tomorrow, and they went to their bed. At some point in the night, Mehdi Mia, when woke up, he did not find Sir Sayyid on his bed. So he went out and saw that Sir Sayyid was walking back and forth in his courtyard. And sometimes while walking, he was weeping and crying. So he asked Sir Sayyid, what happened? Is there any bad news? So Sir Sayyid says, कौम की हालत इतनी खराब है, इससे बुरी खबर क्या हो सकती है? So that statement of Sir Sayyid impacted Mehdi Mia so much that he said that now our differences apart. From now onward, we will work together. And later on, we saw that Mehdi Mia played a huge role in making of Aligarh Muslim University, and he is known as Muhsin al-Mulk. And I would like to end this presentation with hadith which says that innama amal bin niyat. अगर सर सैयद की नीयत सिर्फ शोहरत कमाना होती तो वो सिर्फ शोहरत ही मिलती उनको, लेकिन उनकी नीयत यूनिवर्सिटी बनाना, तो उन्होंने यूनिवर्सिटी बनाने में कामयाबी हासिल की. So that's it from my side. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so we have listened to Johar and Ashad in the introductions. Both of them did a good job, and but Johar has pointed out that he may have issues with time management, so that has to be. Actually, the devil is in detail. Ultimately, it boils down to our own personal management. If we are able to manage our time, then rest of the things they fall in place. And I'm not saying that we should become very panicky about it. And some people, when they do it too mechanically, then also it helps. But maybe some broad idea as to what are my priorities and how much time I should spend on my priorities. That is crucial. So, Jawahar, if you have that as one of your concern,
Yes,
please
sir.
address that, because that is going to play a crucial role in your future achievements.
Okay, sir.
And Sayyid Ashad has very rightly noted that sports teaches us many things. And so if he has been an involved footballer, then it must have taught him many things,
Yes, sir.
especially sportsmanship, which
Yes, sir.
involves, losing gracefully. So life is not all about winning; it is about losing gracefully. Because only when we learn to lose gracefully, then that is a stepping ground for future success, isn't it? Because when we lose, we analyze why did we lose, what else we can do. Was it so that there was lack of coordination in the team, or we need to work better on our own personal strengths? I mean, like all those things, yes, you're very right that it's a life skill that we teach. And in fact, one of my friend who is a coach for students for this roller hockey, skating. And he, based on his 30 years of experience as a coach, tells me that I have not seen any of my skater losing in life. And he said, in fact, he specially quoted about skating that it teaches you balancing skills. You learn to balance, and that is one of the important things in life. And I understand football also must be teaching you how to balance.
Yes, sir.
So well done, Asha.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And yes, the contacts help, but ultimately our own preparation, how can we utilize those contacts? That matters more. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So then we had two very good presentations as regards recap also. Parva was very articulate and lucid with her presentation, and she has a very pleasant way of communicating. Maybe the point which I'm making about some others also, some bit of more force in the delivery will add to your performance, but overall you did a very good job.
Thank you, sir.
And Aziz, you seem to be intellectually inclined, and you have a point of view of looking at things. So, but here, I think the main focus of our group was when there is a job of recap to be done, you are expected to stick to the in fact it's a summary of the discussion in the class. So some explanations you can add as a kind of bringing additional examples. That's good if you do additional research. But sticking to the core, which you did in the later part, and in the first part, it was more of your view on the things. So overall, you impressed us with your intellectual capability, but remain stuck to the job at hand, and that is an honest reporter of what was discussed in the class, and how we emphasize the importance of leadership in everything. So let us now begin with this quote, which we have started with the discussion on planning yesterday, where we said plans are nothing, planning is everything. It's a very famous quote by Eisenhower, US president who led the country in the Second World War. So, what do you think this quote is trying to communicate? Plans are nothing, planning is everything. Can we have some inputs?
So can you please repeat the question?
The question is, there is a quote by Eisenhower, the US president during Second World War. He said, plans are nothing, planning is everything.
So what I understood
Yeah.
from this quote is that plans are basically just what we write on paper. But how we actually plan everything is way more important than how it is written or shown.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
So plans are nothing. Basically, it's just something that is written on the paper, some drawing or some ideas that are there on the paper. But basically, how to bring about those ideas to life, that is the actual process of planning. Like
Hmm,
the way we manage the steps, that is more important than the plan itself.
okay.
So in a way, this is absolutely opposite to what the point I raised yesterday. I said that at the core of leading, there is a plan, and there is planning. This quote somehow relates to me on the level that it says that at the core of planning, there is leading. Like
Hmm,
anybody can come up with a plan on paper and say that okay, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, we'll do that. But it takes a real leader to put those plans actually into order and actually into the real life.
And
okay.
so
That is
plan
your view.
plans
Tell
plans
us.
might also be plan might also be just a rough idea. For example, if I have a dream or I have something planned, like I want to go to Manali or I want to go to Niltan, I can plan it. I do have a plan, but proper implementing it, contacting all the other friends and then organizing the resources, then looking out for the hotels, and this will come in the proper planning. Till
Mhm.
then, my plan was only on the papers, only in my mind, as Amma mentioned. But when I implemented it, when I properly organized everything, when I properly looked out for all the resources available to me, then it became the proper planning. And same, I guess, was in the case of World War II, because they all had plans to conquer the world. They all had plans to, win the war. But ultimately, only one nation emerged victorious, and its subsequent allies. So they had a better planning. They had a proper implementation of the resources. They had speed, which ultimately helped them, and that's what I guess from where this quote arose.
So
So,
anyway,
accord,
just,
so what
just,
I
just
have,
a minute, Anand.
okay.
I think Palaksh, what you are saying is in a way matching with what Adil is saying, that plans as such require somebody who can execute those plans, isn't it? Is that what both of you are saying?
Sir,
Uh,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yes,
Okay.
sir. In a way, yes, sir.
So not only executing, but also coming up with a plan and knowing enough to formulate a plan, a good plan. I need to say,
Yes.
also needs a good leadership, because only a good leader can assess the situations and all the goods and highs and lows of his team, and then come up with a good and efficient plan.
Okay. Yes, Anam, you were saying
So
something.
I can actually define it from a different point of view, in a way that, for example, let's say I have a plan to achieve a certain goal. So we are talking here about the destination, but we're not focusing on the process that is involved in the whole planning process. So that is why we are saying that plans are nothing, but planning is everything. I just came to this conclusion.
Okay, so you feel that the destination is important. Thinking about the destination is
No,
important.
sir. Yes, sir. Thinking is important, but the process is more important than that.
sir, I also want to explain.
Yes. Please.
Sir, I referred is as a plan as a sir. I am defining to do something. Plan and planning. I have done something, and what are the consequences after that? I am recording them.
Hmm.
I have already done the procedure for the things I have planned. सर यानी एक सर हिंदी में थोड़ा सा बोल सकता हूँ
आप पहले तो वीडियो ऑन कीजिए. यस.
सर मैं कह रहा हूँ प्लान्स आपके वो चीज होती हैं जो आपने इन रास्ते में सोच के बनाया है कि मैं जैसे सर एग्जांपल देना चाहूंगा कि मैं आज जाऊंगा बुक लेकर आऊंगा तो ये मैंने प्लान बनाया है प्लानिंग हो गई कि मैंने उसके लिए पैसे इकट्ठा किए फिर मैं गया बुक खरीद के ली आया अब मेरे पास बुक हो गई है तो जो प्रोसीजर मैं रिकॉर्ड करूंगा मुझे उसको लाने में क्या क्या करना पड़ा उसे सर प्लानिंग कहेंगे एक तरह से
ओके.
थैंक यू सर
Sir, in a nutshell, we can also define that plans are basically a broader perspective which lacks detailing, and planning, on the other hand, is full of detailing and proper implementation, on-ground implementation of those plans.
Actually, what happens is that in an act of planning, we do two things. We set goals, isn't it? Like, for example, at some stage, you must have set this goal that you want to get into MBA, isn't it? That's your goal. And then you develop plans to reach to that destination. So deciding about the destination, where you want to reach, and then deciding how will you reach it. So what and how. So the plans are actually that answer to the second question, that is how.
सर
How
इसमें
you,
सर इसमें ये नहीं ऐड होगा कि हाउ यू हैव रीच्ड
that would be when you have reached the destination, isn't
कैसे
it?
ओके
And
सर
actually we never reach the destination. As they say, जुस्तजू हो तो सफर खत्म कहाँ होता है.
सर इसी सर दैट्स आर द थिंग्स वी रिकॉर्ड फॉर नॉट सर ताकि इन फ्यूचर कभी कोई ऐसा हमें काम आए तो दोबारा परेशानी ना हो इसीलिए हम रिकॉर्ड करके प्लानिंग को और अच्छे से अच्छी करने की हमेशा कोशिश करते हैं कि हमें क्या क्या फेल्योर हो गया उसको करने में
That would be like, for example, maybe for your personal management, many of us resort to diary writing, isn't it? To what we have done, what we have not done, isn't it? But if you look at the planning, this act of planning, it is actually thinking ahead. If we define it in very simple terms, thinking ahead. We have to reach somewhere. Like I gave the example which all of you can relate to. What you wanted to do, you wanted to reach to Department of Business Administration. That was your destination, and you have reached here. Now, each one of you must have had a different plan. Plans could have varied, like for example, and that would depend on, let us say, what are weak areas. For example, somebody might not be good in mathematics and reasoning and numerical part of the test, written test, and he may develop or she may develop a plan for focusing on that part more. Somebody may be weak in language, so he might have developed a plan to, develop proficiency in that part more. So plans are our, exact methods through which we would reach. Like for example, recently we saw the budget being presented, the country's budget. That also is a plan, actually. Plan which has been stated in financial terms. But what is the destination? The destination is important. Through that budget, we want to, let us say, make our country strong economically. That is our destination. And through successive budgets, apparently the governments are trying to achieve that. So plans could be of, different formats. Like for example, I will share with you a plan on which we are working presently, and I would like to have your inputs when we meet next. That's a venture we are working on as a part of entrepreneurial efforts. You all know that our department has a incubation center. So we are nurturing this venture under that. So we have developed a kind of background note as to what are our inspirations, how we want now, where we want to reach, what are our objectives, and all that. I would put that in the category of a descriptive plan. So plan could be in terms of, we could have very varied formats. One format I described, the budget of the country. That's one format. When plans are stated in financial terms. But when I ask you to write your career plan, that would be a descriptive plan. You will say, okay, I am like this. These are my strengths. This is what you are doing in your introductions, actually. So when you write it down, that becomes your descriptive plan. So we have a destination. लेकिन हम लोग के अक्सर मेजॉरिटी ऑफ अस आर फेस्ड विद दिस सिचुएशन व्हेन वी से कि ये तो तय है कि सफर करना है, ये नहीं तय कि किधर जाना है. So many of us have aspirations. Often these aspirations are vague aspirations. We don't know exactly where we want to reach. We want to reach somewhere. So when we take up this issue, in fact, there is a very interesting dialogue between, there's a classic literary composition. You might have heard this name, Alice in the Wonderland. So there is an interesting dialogue between the cat and the Alice. And the cat asks, Alice says that I want to travel, I want to go. And what should I do? And cat says that depends greatly on where you want to go. And Alice says that I don't know, but I want to reach somewhere. So then Cat says that you are sure to do if you walk long enough. So that's one way of looking at it. Often we have vague aspirations. We want to reach somewhere. And when I describe, I'll maybe in the next class, I'll share with you my own life's journey. There are so many twists and turns. Some because you change, sometimes the twists and turns are there because the environment change. For example, I came to AMU with an idea that I'll do my MBBS, and at some stage I realized that this is not for me. So I changed in the light of my exposure to or thinking about my own self. But then what do you do specifically? That depends greatly on the kind of exposure. Finally, I developed an interest in the field of HR and human behavior and communication, these kind of softer issues of management. And this happened because I got exposed to a person and a league in IIM Ahmedabad, and his name was Dr. D.M. Pestanji. He is an authority on stress management research. And when I came in contact with him, my interest in human behavior, my interest in HR related issues got aroused. So sometimes what happens is that we change and sometimes the environment change. And because of that, the plans that we prepare for ourselves, they undergo change. And Eisenhower, when he made that statement, plans are nothing, planning is everything. Actually, what he was referring to is that yes, peacetime planning is very important. There is a quote: the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So, our act of preparation, planning during the peacetime is important, and we may develop elaborate plans. But when we are against an enemy in a combat situation, the exact ground situation, there are so many things that may have to be changed. Your original plans may have to be dropped. So he said planning is indispensable because it forces you to think ahead. It forces you to clarify for yourself the direction in which you want to travel, the destination which you have in mind. But maybe you have to be slightly flexible as regards the plans that you have developed, because plans will have to undergo a change. And I think this is what is being indicated by this statement: plans are nothing, planning is everything. So we are not saying that these functions, maybe Aziz was very particular about controlling, but in the example which he gave, this fighter in Steve Jobs, when he was thrown out of his own company, he bounced back. And I'll share with you this speech which he delivered at Stanford, the convocation address, where he has elaborated this point in great detail. He says, when I was out of the company which I created, I asked this question to myself. And he said, I came to this conclusion that I still love what I was doing. And he restarted. So whether we will call it an act of controlling or we will call it an act of leadership, where you bounce back again after losing. Yes, he failed, but he said, I'm not a failure. I failed, but I'm not a failure. And he bounced back again. And like Aziz was describing, in a remarkable turn of events, he came back. I mean, he became, again, he created a company, Pixar, and Pixar bought Apple again. So actually, what matters in life, and this you have seen in case of Sir Syed also, it is the desire. And in fact, I would add a qualifying statement, a qualifying adverb before this, not just a desire, a burning desire. जिसको एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम साहब ने कहा कि वो ख्वाब जो आपको सोने नहीं देते, वो ख्वाब नहीं जो आप सोते में देखते, वो ख्वाब जो आपको सोने नहीं देते, that is the starting point of every planning effort. And the example that I described to you, Mohsinul Mulk and Sir Sayyid's interaction, Sir Sayyid, Mohsinul Mulk saw those burning desires in Sir Sayyid's eyes, which don't let you sleep. And that is why, there have been researches on institution building, and Professor Uday Parikh, who has done pioneering work in case of institution building, he says in the final analysis, institution building is an act of faith. It is an act of faith that I can do it. I will do it. This could apply to Apple. This could apply to AMU. Likewise, in war situation, the example which he said, our former vice chancellor, who was an army journal, you know him, Zamiruddin Shah, he used to say that in a combat situation, what matters ultimately is the spirit of the warrior. Spirit of the warrior is the most decisive thing. So your plans may undergo change because situations change. But if your spirit is intact, if your spirit to succeed is intact, you will succeed. So goals and plans, these are the two things that we have to do. And we need to have a time frame also. That is what we have to do, how we have to do, and when we have to do. So like for example, if you have started your preparation for MBA, let us say 1 year back, you have that time frame in your mind. For example, how much time I will spend on mathematics, how much time I would spend on this part, how will I develop my communication abilities, how will I develop my overall knowledge of the world around me, how much time I'm going to spend on this. And this cannot be many times when I was heading the coaching and guidance center, I used to see some of the students and still they could not make it because I mean, they would have so elaborate preparation. They would take out 8 books from the library and they would prepare detailed notes. And major point, they will have no idea as to how much is the time frame in which I have to finish this particular topic. You are not going to be an expert, authority on that topic. You have to have a decent understanding of the topic. That's all. In fact, one student came to me, sir, they are not issuing me 8 books. Why do you have limited this? You can't have more than 5 books at a time. I need 8 books to study this topic. I said, first understand from the best book which you feel is there as to what is there in this topic. So goals, plans, and time frame. That is the core of plan. Now goals have a hierarchy. What is at the top of the goal? How do we do goal setting? The goal setting starts with vision. What is vision?
Sir, our aspirations.
Aspirations,
foresight of future,
foresight.
what we.
So vision is foresight. Vision is, yes, our worldview also. Isn't it? There is a there is a couplet which puts it very beautifully. Says कि दो जगह रहते हैं हम, एक तो वो शहर मलाल is regret. So we always have a pious, many of us who are thinking type, who are leading responsible lives, we have pious dissatisfaction with things around us. We are not happy. So that is what poet is saying कि दो जगह रहते हैं हम, एक तो वो शहर मलाल, दूसरा वो है जो ख्वाबों में सजाए हुए हैं. So some aspirations, the desire that we have with the world should around us should be like this. So vision is that uplifting thing which you have set out to do. And as they say, the best way to predict the future is to carve it. So that worldview is not something which you have, taken as granted, but something which you will carve out with your own efforts. So you are very right. This foresight could be a term which can be used, and many times these words they overlap. So vision to me is the starting point. Then we set out to specify the mission of us. What specifically we will do. If you continue with Sir Sayyid's example, his vision was, जिसमें उन्होंने बहुत एक उनकी बहुत मशहूर स्पीच है जिसको आपने यकीनन सुना भी होगा लोगों को कोट करते हुए कि मैं हिंदुस्तान को एक खूबसूरत दुल्हन की तरह देखता हूँ और उस दुल्हन की दो आंखें हैं और मैं चाहता हूँ कि दोनों आंखें जो हैं वो खूबसूरत हो. That is your vision. But what specifically you will do for realizing that aspiration? That is your mission. The society might have been faced with so many issues. For example, religious orthodoxy was one issue which was there. And Sir Sayyid was potent enough that he could have, focused only on religious reforms. But he analyzed that the core of the problem is, जिसके लिए हम अंग्रेजी में लफ्ज इस्तेमाल करते हैं, पेनेशिया is education. So he said that there are so many things which can be done, but I will focus on education. That became his mission, Talim and Tarbiyat. And what kind of education? The education which has helped Britishers rise, the modern liberal education. Otherwise, the education, the orthodox education, the oriental education was there in the community. So he set out to do a particular. So I'm sorry, the time is over. So we will take it up again, and we'll talk about the hierarchy of goals, and then we will come to different plans that we have for ourselves. And then finally, we will discuss two views on planning, which many of you have raised today. A view which says that this we formulate strategies, and other view which says no, strategies evolve gradually. So we'll discuss these two views when we meet next. Thank you very much.